major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Friday, July 2nd. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. From Oceanside to the border, people across our county are getting ready for the first 4th of July celebration in 2 years. The pandemic put a stop to most people's plan, but that's not the case this weekend. Our coverage begins with KPBS reporter John Carroll.
The Big Bay Boom will thunderously light up the sky once again this year, and lots of people will be taking it in from Coronado. The island was hopping on Friday, a feeling of celebration in the air.
We expect to have over 2,000 runners this year. Yeah, we're very excited.
At Tidelands Park, the bunting is going up, and Crown City Classic race director Brian Ullery is happy to see things return to normal for this 48-year-old tradition.
This is the first running event in San Diego in a year and a half. I was telling everybody at our staff meeting on Thursday, I didn't know if I'd ever do this again, and here we are, setting up in the sunshine.
Over at the Coronado Ferry Landing, people were waiting in line at Holland's Bikes and Beyond.
We've been doing pretty well today. We're almost out of bikes inside, and it's only Friday.
Christian Molinar says things weren't terrible for Holland's last year. Riding bikes was one of the few activities available during the pandemic. But now?
Definitely looks like things are kind of coming back to normal. We're seeing bigger crowds than last year.
Here at the Glorietta Bay Inn, it's not that last year was bad.
We sold last year, we'll sell this year.
It's just that this year is better.
Started with spring break, and that flow is just going through all the way, I would say, until the end of the year. People are ready to get out and have some fun.
The annual 4th of July parade is also back, but they're holding it on the 3rd this year. And back over at Tidelands Park, the starting point for the race is up, the finish line is marked out, and Brian Ullery told me something that's probably on a lot of our minds right about now.
It's good that America's back and that we're all back and we get to have a race, we get to have some fun.
Exactly. John Carroll, KPBS News.
There's no better way to kick off the 4th of July weekend than by celebrating some of our very own military members who took an important oath this morning aboard the USS Midway Museum. KPBS reporter Alexandra Rangel was there for the ceremony.
It's a very special day today for the 20 military service members who have now become U.S. citizens of the United States. 8 sailors and 12 Marines from 10 different countries were naturalized by Chief U.S. District Judge Dana Sabra Friday. We spoke to Sailor Therendu Nalaparuma from Sri Lanka, who moved to the U.S. 14 years ago.
It's been a journey. I'm very happy about it. I'm very grateful to finally be a citizen.
Jose Rafael Arteaga Peña.
Sailor Jose Peña moved to the U.S. from Mexico when he was just 1 year old. He says the journey to naturalization wasn't easy.
Being able to go on deployment, come back from it, and then become a citizen. So it was a process, but we got it done and it's over with.
Colonel Daniel Whitley, currently stationed at Camp Pendleton, congratulated the service members and thanked the people who sacrificed to get them to where they are now.
I think it goes without saying that these service members, they didn't get here on their own. There are a lot of people that helped them get to this point, most of which they probably are not here with us today. And what I'm talking about family members, extended family members, teachers, coaches, mentors, and other individuals that helped shape their path.
Peña's family, who lives across the country, couldn't make it to the ceremony in time, but they were there in spirit.
They just said to enjoy it and experience it because it's like once in a lifetime thing that you're going to experience.
Alexandra Rangel, KPBS News.
Some of the last troops fighting America's longest war are coming home. A senior defense official says they have left Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan. Our troops first arrived there back in 2002 in the early years of the conflict. About 1,000 troops may remain in the country after the formal withdrawal, but military experts warn with recent Taliban advances, the country is at risk of civil war. In a few weeks, every registered voter in California will get a ballot in the mail for the gubernatorial recall election. Melissa May, KPBS News, has the details.
This is the 6th recall attempt against Governor Newsom, but the first to make it to a ballot. Brian Adams is a political science professor at San Diego State University and says the September 14th date could be a good and bad thing for Governor Newsom.
From Newsom's perspective, right, I'm thinking about his strategy, right? He wanted to have it earlier primarily because things are going well for him now. The biggest problem that Newsom faces is that when the recall comes, all those Republicans who are really energized, they all go out and vote, and Democrats stay home, either because they figure out I'm really not interested in this, or they actually don't realize there's a recall.
This ballot will only have 2 questions on it. A yes or no question on whether to recall Newsom, and if you vote yes on a recall, then there will be a list of candidates, from which you will have to pick one to be the replacement candidate. There are 4 major Republican candidates who are running:
Kevin Faulconer, John Cox, Caitlyn Jenner, and Doug Oso. So those 4, right now the polling indicates that none of them are doing particularly well.
The San Diego Registrar of Voters has been preparing for various scenarios and feels prepared, even with the short time frame, to organize. Voters in San Diego County will have the option to return their ballot by mail or at one of the many convenient mail ballot drop-off locations around the county. The registrar has already started reaching out to poll workers and poll locations who served in the November 2020 election. They are also planning on having approximately 200 super poll locations open for 4 days of voting. According to the State Finance Department, this election is going to cost $276 million. Melissa May, KPBS News.
Millions of Americans are hitting the road and the skies this July 4th holiday weekend. More than 2.14 million people were screened at airports yesterday, one of the busiest days in the past 16 months. But as Pete Muntean reports, travelers are likely in for some headaches since airlines are still working with fewer employees and fewer planes.
Long lines and high stress are back at airports across the country, with passengers packing into fewer planes, staffed by fewer workers. Southwest Airlines is now offering flight attendants double pay to work extra July 4th trips, telling them in a company memo, if you are healthy and it is safe to do so, please help. It is the latest move by airlines to avoid a ripple effect of delays and cancellations as they struggle to keep up with pent-up demand for travel.
Leisure demand is more than 100% recovered, indicates the huge desire for people to get back to living life.
Data from FlightAware shows in June, Southwest Airlines delayed or canceled the most flights of any U.S. carrier, followed by American Airlines. To stem off even more cancellations, American is preemptively trimming 1% of flights from its schedule through mid-July, citing bad weather and staffing shortages. Consumer advocates say airlines should have been prepared for this travel surge, especially after receiving more than $50 billion in aid from the federal government.
We need to have a national discussion about how the airlines are using taxpayer dollars, and yet they're still not serving us, and they're still inconveniencing us.
Passengers are taking out their frustrations on board flights and facing thousands in federal fines. The FAA now says it has received more than 3,000 reports of unruly passengers since the start of this year, more than 2,000 over the federal transportation mask mandate. Sarah Nelson of the Association of Flight Attendants says flight crews are facing a harsh new reality.
Now the public is coming back and getting out and treating flight attendants as punching bags, and they're doing that verbally and physically.
But most July 4th travelers will bypass problems in the air. AAA says 43 million people will travel by car, a number close to figures from before the pandemic. Traffic is up compared to last year, and so is the cost of gas. The national average is now above $3 a gallon, the highest this holiday has seen in 7 years.
Gasoline prices are going to stubbornly stay above $3 and in probably the $3.10 and $3.20 range throughout the rest of the summer. But we also know people don't let that get in the way of going on a vacation.
Our gas prices are high above the national average here in San Diego County. The average price of a gallon of regular gas rose slightly today to $4.27. That's the highest amount since May of 2014. It's also $1.17 more than we were paying the same time last year. President Biden says today's strong job report is proof his American Rescue Plan is working.
This is historic progress, pulling our economy out of the worst crisis in 100 years, driven in part by our dramatic progress in vaccinating our nation and beating back the pandemic, as well as other elements of the American Rescue Plan.
The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported the economy added 850,000 jobs in June. That's far more than economists predicted. Miro Kopik has more in the Friday Business Report.
Well, today was a really good jobs report. It was reported that over 850,000 jobs were added to the U.S. economy, which was the strongest gain in the last 10 months. There was job growth in all sectors. And this is really important because, what we saw in the last couple of months was that some sectors were seeing, broader recoveries, others were a little more stagnant. This week, the Congressional Budget Office announced that they believe that the economy will return to that 3.5%, 4% unemployment level by middle to end of next summer. So we're seeing that there's a big momentum and acceleration in economic growth that's going to be sustained for the next at least 12 months, which is a good sign. And we're going to see big jobs numbers, especially this summer in July, August, and September. So overall, a good report and positive signal.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, tragic aftermath. Rescue teams brave dangerous conditions amid the rubble of the condo collapse. Coming up after your hour of local news on Arizona PBS.
California public health officials say new data shows vaccinations prevent nearly all COVID-related hospitalizations and death. Out of over 20 million vaccinated people, only 584 people contracted the coronavirus and required hospitalization. The spread of the more transmissible Delta variant has renewed calls to get all eligible Californians vaccinated as quickly as possible. And if you want to read more about vaccinations and where to get one, you can find all the information on our website, kpbs.org. Just click on the vaccines link on our homepage. A man who sued the city of San Diego for unfair treatment of disabled homeless people living in RVs and campers has died. His friends and others in the same situation are rallying, saying their legal fight is not over. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman explains.
I dreamed I saw Loud Hill last night, alive as you and me.
At South Shores Park in Mission Bay, a memorial service was held for Michael Bloom, a native San Diegan who took the city head-on in a legal fight to change overnight parking and habitation laws. He had been living out of an old camper for more than a decade.
He was always in pain. He was, wasn't any time that he wasn't in pain.
His brother Bill says Michael was found dead in early June. Bloom was the lead plaintiff in a lawsuit against the city, arguing disabled homeless in RVs are unfairly targeted for tickets. We first met Michael in 2017, who said paying more than $100 fines made it nearly impossible to live on his small disability checks.
Not being able to eat or, buy gas, it's just, they don't realize how big a cut that is on anything that you want to do. Disposable income is just a big joke to when you're homeless. And I don't have any place to go to, anymore, so I love San Diego, but I almost feel like I wouldn't want to be alive if I didn't have a camper.
Michael's brother says Bloom recently suffered a heart attack, but even though he was disabled and in pain, always managed to have a smile on his face.
I helped him. I promised Mom that I'd always take care of Mike and always do the best I can, and I kept that promise. And I gave him water, food, and any way I could help him, but he was very proud. He didn't want to accept help for some reason. He just wanted to live life on his terms. I don't know, he didn't think a lot about money for some reason.
Michael said he was constantly in fear of getting ticketed, so much so that it was hard for him to sleep at night. When we caught up with him in 2019, community organizer Martha Sullivan had given him a place to park his camper, which helped him avoid fines.
As long as things are working the way they are, I mean, I'm happy. I love being able to be where I want to be at.
Sullivan later got Michael a more functional camper and says they became friends through the push to change parking and habitation laws.
He was a huge teacher of understanding because despite all the adversity that he faced and all the harm that was done to him, he was a very compassionate and kind person who wanted that for everyone. He wanted it for everyone.
If Michael were here today, he would want us to raise our voices and continue the struggle. And that's what we're going to do.
Disability Rights California attorney Ann Menashe says there was a slight pause in ticketing during the pandemic, but that's over and fines plus impoundments are happening again. She says Bloom's name will live on through the lawsuit.
Well, it's incredibly sad. It's really, it's really, really tragic. And it shows that, people in this situation who are treated like this have shortened lives.
I never died, said he.
Michael Bloom was 72 years old. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
California students who fell behind during the unprecedented pandemic school year now have new options to get back on track. Governor Gavin Newsom signed legislation authored by San Diego Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez. It allows students to retake their grade level if they are not passing at least half of their courses. High schoolers can change their grades to a pass or no pass, and there are new options to complete graduation requirements. The pandemic has dealt blows to many people's mental, physical, and economic health, especially in San Diego's immigrant communities. KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler tells us how a group of peer counselors in City Heights are trying to heal the community by both connecting people to much-needed services and just being there to listen.
Case numbers for the COVID-19 pandemic are down this summer. But the devastation the pandemic wrought on immigrant communities in San Diego is still very much being felt. Hamadi Jumali, the executive director of the Somali Bantu community of San Diego, can hear it in the voices of the people who call him at all hours, looking for help in a desperate situation.
I think in the community, a lot of the community doesn't know their rights, because it's very few knows that this is my right. And with working with the community, we are educating the community.
Help is out there, thanks to a steady stream of federal and state funding to stave off evictions, help people make up lost income, and get utility bills paid. But connecting these communities to help in languages they actually understand has been a challenge after such a chaotic year. While Jumali takes these types of emergency calls as part of his regular job, he's now joined by over 24 other crisis counselors, part of a project that began in March from the San Diego Refugee Communities Coalition, Cal Hope Counseling Project, and the United Women of East Africa. The project came together after a study found immigrants in San Diego were 3 times more likely to be unemployed than other San Diegans.
We know that the pandemic was hard on everybody, right? Things like increased anxiety around constant health monitoring, loss of jobs, the physical isolation from support systems and communities. But we also noticed when we did this impact report that there was, that we know intellectually that this pandemic has impacted the refugee and new immigrant community more than the general population.
Claire Enemark is helping to lead this program, which uses federal emergency money to train crisis counselors who can speak with immigrant communities in their own languages. Right now, help is available in 18 languages. Immigrants can call a single number, then get put through to someone who speaks their language.
Our program is really unique. One of the the main aspects that makes our program unique is it's a peer-based workforce. So we have 25 community support navigators who themselves are refugee and new immigrants. So they have this lived experience of surviving the pandemic, right, as we all have, but they have survived the pandemic with this unique experience.
Flyers advertising the program have been distributed at immigrant-owned marketplaces throughout City Heights, and its number has been shared on WhatsApp message groups, all trying to reach the community where it's at. The hope is that the counseling program meets all the needs of people at the moment of crisis, acknowledging that a financial crisis can easily segue into one involving someone's mental health.
One of our community support navigators a client reached out to her, said that he needed some help in paying his utility bill. He wasn't able to pay his utility bill. So she said, absolutely, connected him with the SDG&E rate reduction program, helped him sign up and apply for that, helped him kind of translate because it wasn't accessible in his native language of Arabic. And in that process, he opened up to our community support navigator that his wife had died of COVID just a few months earlier. And because he had felt, because of all of these existing community, there was a lot of mental health stigma. Had our staff not been providing some of that essential practical support up front, he might not have felt comfortable opening up.
For Jamali, who's already been doing this work for years, he's just happy to see there's a new generation of peer counselors getting trained. What he wants to see the most, though, are mental health professionals and social workers coming out of the community.
With the next generation, we want to make sure that we have our psychiatrists, we have counseling in our community, because we feel like community members need people that they speak their language.
The program is slated to run through the fall. Its leaders hope that further funding allows for the program to continue as long as the mental and financial impacts of the pandemic are still being felt. Anyone looking for help can call 888-222-0980. Max O'Flynn-Adler, KPBS News.
There's often an increase in lost pets following the 4th of July who get scared by fireworks and then just run away. The San Diego Humane Society recommends leaving your pets inside in a comfortable spot, sheltered from noise and from lights. Also, make sure your pets are microchipped with current contact information tags on their collar. Shelters are closed on July 4th, but open for intake and reclaims of stray animals on July 5th. Time is running out to have fun at the county fair. This is the last weekend at the Del Mar Fairgrounds. This year's theme is homegrown fun, and there are plenty of rides, booths, activities, and of course food for everyone's taste. The fair closes on Sunday with a fireworks display at 9 o'clock.
We're keeping a few of those extra clouds. The marine layer, it fades away pretty quickly in the morning this time of year, but it does serve us a little bit as to keeping the coast more comfortable. Mild temperatures, though, still remain across the region, as in seasonable or just above average, and no rain chances still to come, except for maybe a stray shower tomorrow morning and a few remote spots. I think we're looking pretty quiet, which is why tonight we've got some extra clouds out there. We've got the marine layer, also some high thin clouds. San Diego 66 for your low. Mount Laguna coming in at 70 degrees tonight. Notice Futurecast here dealing with, again, some of those extra clouds to start off with. Not really talking about wet weather. The question is, though, does anything slide in from the southeast? Maybe for some of our mountainous locations, a stray shower by tomorrow morning. Not a lot of wet weather. I don't think we should get too excited about this, but there will be maybe that subtle chance across the area for Saturday morning. Saturday, though, all in all, should be pretty dry. The trend with the moisture will be trimming it back towards the east through Colorado, New Mexico, and southeastern Arizona. So we're not going to be looking at much chance of rain over the next few days, at least for the large scale pattern. We are seeing mostly just our marine layer giving way to sunshine. 73 for the high, 74 rather, as we go into tomorrow. 73 in Mount Laguna and 107 in Borrego Springs. Sunday's forecast, more of the same. Again, all the rainfall well off to our east, keeping us pretty quiet across the area. Which means if you're headed to the fireworks Sunday night, 72 the low, looking good here with mainly clear skies. 72 is about the temperature, I should say, will be falling through at that time. We will enter into the 60s at some point. Notice the next few days, though, temperatures in the mid-70s and keeping things fairly bright, fairly quiet, fairly dry. We'll be in the mid-80s for inland locations with a few extra clouds out there, I think, as we head in towards Monday. Beyond that, mountain locations hanging out in the lower 70s, climbing to the mid-70s into the middle of next week. And our desert locations somewhere around the 105 to 110 range. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
Just in time for the 4th of July, a rehabilitated bald eagle returns to the wild. This young eagle came to the San Diego Humane Society with an injured clavicle. It was found in Warner Springs and it was unable to fly. Now that it's healed, it's being released back into the skies to soar freely wherever it wants. There's a modern-day space race taking place. Move over Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson could become the first billionaire to travel to space. Virgin Galactic says its founder will be on the company's next test flight out of New Mexico on July 11th. That's 9 days before Bezos is expected to travel to space in his Blue Origin rocket.
I would love Jeff to come and see our flight off whenever it takes place. And I would love to go and watch him go in his flight. And I think both of us will wish each other well. And it really doesn't matter whether one of us goes a few days before the other.
For the past 2 decades, Branson and Amazon founder Bezos have been competing to establish interstellar travel for the public. Someone paid Bezos more than $28 million in an auction for a seat on Blue Origin's flight, by the way. The winner's name has not yet been revealed. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great weekend.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.